Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday, spending some of your Friday afternoon, a summer Friday afternoon with us. We're happy that you've signed on and we have a great session lined up for you. Just to mention, this is a recorded session, so there will be an on-demand episode available after. So if any team members that did not get a chance to join, we will have a copy of this for you. It'll come out on Monday on demand. And right now, everything is on mute, but we're going to be hosting a Q&A session at the end, and we welcome everybody to unmute themselves, come off mute, ask some questions, and have some dialogue with our wonderful host, Dr. Adam Scholoff.
Thank
Adam,
you so
you want to kick it
much,
off?
Jillian. Great, thank you. So first of all, thank you all for joining. I know some of you guys have texted me that you're in the middle of your clinic day, hopefully on lunch. So if I'm going in the background, that works too. Pleasure to meet some of you that I have not met yet. I definitely see some new names on the attendees list. So I figure I might as well introduce myself a bit. So Adam Schulhoff, I am co-founder and CEO of Grin, but I am also a practicing orthodontist. I have been doing this for longer than I care to mention now. I graduated in 2003, so about 22 years or so in practice now. I live in New York, not in the city, a little bit more upstate to some extent. I have a practice in New York and also in New Jersey. I did have a practice in New York City as well. I sold that back in 2019 or so as we were starting Grin. And for those of you that do know me, may know me from back in the day that I was, they used to call me the lingual guy because I did a lot of incognito and I taught it and lectured it all over the world. I mean, for me, it was always about cutting edge innovation, bringing things to our patients that, don't just make us happy as orthodontists, but also make our patients happy going through this journey. And that's sort of how Grin came to be. So just to give you a very, very quick little background, I had this practice in New York City circa, anywhere from 2011 to 2019. Smile Direct Club hits the market at about 2017 or so. Being in New York City, I started getting an influx of patients getting completely maltreated by Smile Direct Club. But the one thing that I gleaned from all of these patients were the fact that they went with Smile Direct Club originally because they were looking for something better. And when I say looking for something better, it was always a matter in their minds of convenience, right? They were like, well, when I was a kid, I went to the orthodontist every single month. I don't have the time to do that. And that's why I started kind of, really started thinking about how is it that I can give my patients a responsible treatment plan, but yet also answer for them what they're looking for, which is a little bit more convenience. And that's essentially where Grin was born, just like a quick background. And we can delve deeper into that. But for today, what I really want to do is I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world today, how Grin can help our practices today, how I built it within my own practice, how you can utilize this and leverage it for really dramatically changing the way you practice and what next year looks like for you. So we know 2025 is a very interesting time, right? The economy's a mess, right? Everybody thought, oh, it's just because of the elections back in 24, right? And then the elections happened and everybody thought, Trump, love him or hate him, now that the elections are over, things are going to get back to a normal. It didn't, right? Tariffs and this and that. And so the economy's a little bit of a mess. Our patients, I'm on Facebook with you guys all the time. And in every chat, people are like, how was your May? How was your June? Oh, I was really down in May or really up in May, but now my June really sucks. It's just not quite what it used to be. On top of that, post COVID, we've got all these staffing issues. I mean, I can tell you that back in the day, anywhere I started in 2003 up until about 2017, 18, I had team members that stuck around for 5, 10, 15 years. And now that's just not the case, right? I mean, it's just almost like transient. You're constantly losing people, trying to find new people. Finding new people these days are tough, right? With all of these things going on, and then on top of it, we've got all this influx of AI this and AI that. how do we sift through all of this and create opportunity for our practices, really the way we look at it, right? So it's a time of uncertainty, but if you start thinking about these times of uncertainty, that's when those that thrive are really getting their market share, for lack of a better word, right? When you look at some of the top companies today, Uber, Airbnb, et cetera, when were they born? They were born during the crash, right? 10 plus years ago now. And so what can we do today and actually make moves instead of staying stagnant that's going to set us up for a better tomorrow? And we know things come and go in waves. So if now's a little bit of a downturn, we know it's going to go up again, right? Same thing. COVID was bad. Year after COVID, oh my God, it was amazing. We had all this pent up market share, right? And so even if things are a little bit slow now, certainly on the adult side, but even on sometimes on the adolescent side, all of that will land in your chair if you kind of set yourself up the right way. And then how do you deal with all of that? How will we deal with all of that? So first, let me share a little bit about my practice. So this is particularly my practice in Oradell, New Jersey. That's Bergen County, New Jersey. Think of it as a suburb of New York City. I also have one in Rockland County, New York, which is kind of a little bit more north. Um, I have an associate there, Dr. Rebecca Ice. She's fantastic. Could not do any of this without her. But I will tell you that when I started Grin, I actually had two associates. And given what Grin has done to the practice and helped transform it, I was able to actually get rid of one of my associates very amicably, don't worry. But I was able to turn this down to just one associate who's essentially running our practice for us all on our own because of what we've implemented with Grin. So let me show you that, right? So this is back in, I believe it's 2021 or so, right? Just when we're onboarding onto Grin. This was our typical practice day. And I'm sure many of you guys are running a very, very similar situation. So here we had 4 or 5 clinical chairs, 1 consult chair, essentially 5 columns clinical, about 100 patients a day. This was a 90 patient day, but honestly, this went from 90 all the way to 110, 115, depending on the day. This was before implementing Grin. This is directly after implementing Grin. So we were able to squeeze our schedule, and it wasn't even a squeeze, but we were able to bring the schedule down to 3 clinical chairs, 2 new patient columns, or patients that were ready to start columns, and do all of this at about 60 patients a day because we were implementing Grin. And while doing this, actually increase our revenue, right? So that was right before Grin. This was a couple of months after Grin. And this next slide is actually today. So you can see here, June 25th, 2025, just a couple of days ago. What is today? This 27th, so 2 days ago. And you can see that we've got 59 appointments in for the day, right? So again, 2 columns of reevals and consults, patients ready to start, right? Revenue generating columns. We've got 3, 4 columns now because the practice has grown, but you can see you could probably squeeze that into 3 chairs. We happen to have 4 clinical assistants now, thank God. So, we're running it on 4 chairs now. But this is a 2-day-a-week practice that you could see started off at about 100, 110 patients a day, implemented Grin, took it down to 60 patients a day. And this is where I'm going to really show you guys what's what. And what I mean by that is, back in the day, there was an orthodontist that was very, very, how should I say, divisive, right? This orthodontist would get on stage and talk a lot of different things, some things that made a lot of sense, some things that didn't. But the one thing that stuck with me, and I'm not going to name him now, many of you know who I'm talking about. He said, if any orthodontist is up there on stage talking about what something has done for his or her practice, show me the money, show it to us. And so you can see here, this is 2021 before we implemented Grin. Our collections were about $1.3 million or so. 2022, 1.5, 2025, 2.1, essentially 2.2. And this is, like I said, 60 patients a day, 2 days a week. Essentially, Dr. Ice is running this schedule on her own. I'm usually in my office busy with Grin meetings, okay? So, and again, we're going to show you, we're going to extrapolate this out to, what this can do for your practice. But I just wanted to start right out of the gate by showing you the proof, showing you my calendar. This is in TOPS, I can't alter it. Showing you our economics, again, in TOPS, I can't alter it. So that you really see that this truly can work in your favor and can dramatically change the way you're practicing. So first, I'm showing it on a practice level. What I now want to do is also show it on a patient level, right? Now, again, when it comes to clinical, I'm always very, very transparent. So I put together a clinical lecture a couple of months back, I think 2 months ago. And I hate cherry pickers. So instead of pulling specific cases for this lecture, I just showed my last 10 patients finish, right? My last 10 results. I'm not going to show you all results. This is not a clinical lecture by any means. But I took those particular, or from those 10 patients, to break this down and to show you when you implement technologies like Grin across your practice, what it can do for you. So here you can even see the dates. This patient came for their consult, and you can see the blue here, that's the Grin scope. This tells me that it was actually a virtual consult, and they did this, 8/2024. So probably, right, we ordered aligners, they got started a month later, so 9/2024. Here we are, 9/2025, I'm sorry, 4/2025, and you can see this is a beautiful, essentially finished result. So this patient had gone to their GP. They were told 12 to 18 months of aligner treatment. We treated them, happens to be in my practice. We like Solventum and we like Clarity aligners very much. And so we did this case with Clarity aligners, their grip attachments, which are fantastic. I call it managed by Grin. All of our patients are managed by Grin. But the reason I say that is because you're going to learn in a couple of minutes about our Grin care specialists. And so we essentially have a team. Grin has a team that will manage your patients to some extent for you. And they will learn how you like doing things, and essentially they become an extension of your practice. So this case, as you can see, 7 months of treatment, essentially 2 visits. So let's jump to the economics of this. And so I showed you the economics of the practice. Now I'm going to show you the economics on a per patient basis. My case fee for a case like this, $68.85. Okay. Aligner cost for me, $980. This was 2 visits in the chair. Our chair time, hour costs are $285. Essentially, when you do that math on this case, profitability was $56.20, right? And I'm taking into account the chair time. So look at it as a doctor time. You can look at it as $28.10 per visit. Now, the reality of my time during that visit, I didn't put on the attachments. My team member did, right? And we already accounted for that $285 for that team member. I didn't take off, actually, I did take off the attachments. So I sat down chairside, I zipped off those attachments, I spoke to the patient. So doctor time, 2 short visits, $28.10 profitability per visit, essentially, in this case. Here's another one. Now, this case is a little bit different because I'm not going to use aligners. This actually was a patient before her wedding. She wants to close down that open bite. We talked about stability. Don't worry. She's very, very well aware of what we can and cannot accomplish, but wanted to have it done fast. So this is where I actually started with ceramic brackets for a short amount of time. We did this for 3 months. Then we finished for 4 months with aligners and a little bit of elastic wear. Essentially 4 visits in the practice, and this is where we got to. So here you can see this is a snapshot of her Grin scan the day she got bonded. This is a snapshot of her Grin scan the day she went into aligners. And here you can see her after, essentially. So originally, she was quoted by somebody 2 years of aligner treatment. I mean, we know how difficult it is to close anterior open bites when you're utilizing just aligners. But if you layer on brackets and wires, suddenly you're using the right tool for the right job. I'm able to get this patient in and out of their fixed treatment in 3 months, and then 4 months of not retention, but aligners with some elastics, 4 visits in total for her. So let's look at this case fee. Now, this was a combo treatment. So I have the lab fee of my indirect bonded, digital bonded braces. I have the lab fee of my in-house aligners. So this to me was $78.85. That's what we charge. Our DBT brackets, or digitally bonded brackets, are $500, and these are for the ceramic brackets. It includes the setup, it includes the trays, and it includes the brackets as well. This again is Solventum. And then we used in-house aligners. 4 visits at $285, essentially $6,025 in profit, or again, based on the per visits, it's $1,506 per visit. So again, your profitability per visit is increasing tremendously. One more case just to kind of show you guys, I'm trying to give you almost every end of the spectrum. First one was just aligners. Second one was a combo treatment. This one is just brackets and wires. Now this patient, class 3, but a dental compensated class 3. And so this patient was quoted aligners at 24 months by somebody else. Came to us, I said, hey, you want to do this in half the time? Let me put some brackets and wires. He said, sure, no problem. So 12 months of treatment, 4 visits in the chair. And here again, you can see again down to the dates, right? So this was February of 2024 when he originally came in, which means he was bonded in March of 24 because these digitally bonded trays take about 4 or 5 weeks to come back. Here we are, day of debond, which is March 2025, right there. And you can see canine class 3, canine class 1, anterior crossbite, midline on, and we jumped his crossbite. So we managed this case pretty nicely. This case fee, it was brackets, was $78.85. So our adult bracket fee is $78.85. Our digital bonding trays cost us $500. 4 visits at $285. And once again, we've got about $6,000 plus in profitability for the case and about $1,500 per profitability per visit, which again, pretty unbelievable. Now, I just showed you a couple of cases. Let's look at the average case. And again, I didn't cherry pick those cases. Those were some recent cases that just finished. You saw the dates. But look at your typical adolescent case. $68.85 is what we charge in practice. I am digitally bonding every single one of these cases. And what I mean by that is, I am a huge fan. As soon as I started getting a little bit older, and I was a great bracket placer, right? But I started getting a little bit older. My eyesight started going a little bit, my near sight, etc. Plus, I also had associates, and I like repeatability. I want to make sure that braces are going on the right position, regardless of who that provider is, regardless of who the clinician is. So that's something that digital bonding really, really brings to your practice. So I'm a huge fan. Also, it means that digital bonding tray or that aligner attachment tray can be placed by an assistant because we have already done the work, right? So that means less doctor chairside time. I can be in a consult selling more treatment. And so your average case, 6885, digitally bonded, or whether it's brackets and wires or attachments, I'm going to take this specific to braces because with aligners, the numbers are even crazier. Because with our aligners and Grin, I do not see our aligner patients essentially during treatment. I give them their full set, but I am seeing them every single week. Now, it doesn't have to be me. It can be an extension of me, meaning a Grin care specialist. But this means that our aligner patients are virtual, and yet we have more oversight than if I was bringing them in every 12 weeks. And there's no need to because I see everything that I need to virtually. And patients love it. They still feel very much like they're getting taken care of because they have touch points with the office every time they're switching a tray. There's no uncertainty. Should I switch? Should I not switch? Something doesn't feel right. They're fully connected to the practice. So in those cases, a case like this that I'm showing you, your average treatment plan at 5 visits would actually only be 2 visits, 3 visits if there's a refinement. So the numbers are even better. But imagine your average case. For us, it's bond and place round wires. Sometimes we'll use O-on-4s. Sometimes we'll tandem the O-on-4s, which are very, very effective. Then we will push out the patient 12 plus weeks. And we'll talk a little bit about on demand and other opportunities, but let's even say 12 weeks. You get them then into a rectangular night tie. You let that level and align whatever is left. You make sure torques are starting to play out because of that rectangular night tie. You get them back after 12 weeks. You put them into a beta working wire. These are elastics, right? You're putting on class 2s, class 3s, whatever you need. At that point, remote is so powerful because why are you bringing the patient back to yell at them to wear their elastics better if you can have somebody doing this every 28 days virtually, basically in that patient's pocket, reminding them to wear their elastics and making sure they're wearing their elastics. We get them back for a finishing bend appointment, and then we get them back for a debond. So on average, that's 5 visits. So again, $68.85, between $300 to $500 for the digital bonding fee, depending if it's metal or ceramic. 5 visits at $285, you're essentially once again looking at about $1,000 profitability per visit, which is about 3x the national high for profit per visit, which runs at about $300. So again, I'm just trying to kind of build out, and we're going to get more into the nitty gritty, but I'm just trying to build out how impactful this can be for your practice, while really your oversight on your patients is actually getting better. Your connection with your patients is actually getting better. So the question everybody always asks, and I've got texts from a whole bunch of doctors that have been talking to various team members about onboarding onto Grin, and they're like, oh my God, summertime. My summertime is slammed. I can't even think about implementing anything new. It's exactly the opposite, right? This is the time to do it, and I'm literally gonna take you step by step and draw it out so that you can see why, right? Bonding season is the biggest opportunity. If we start this bonding season right now with every single one of these patients that are being onboarded on Grin, and we're gonna talk about averages, we're gonna look at an average, call it everyman practice. That's about 50 bondings essentially over the summertime, because we're going to look at your average practice starting 300 starts a year, which is 600 patients in treatment in total, right? At 300 starts per year, that's about 25 starts a month. Now we know the summertime is heavier, so you could even say it's more than 25 per month over the summertime, but let's even take those 50 patients to start. And what you're going to see, and we're going to draw out for you, is that those 50 patients starting now over the summertime can yield over the next year 1,800 fewer in-person adjustment appointments, not even counting yet the emergency appointments that it gets rid of, or all of the other pieces. You can free up 40 clinical days plus, actually. And we'll talk about ROI, and we've got ROI calculators and all these other things. But let me show you how I kind of look at the data and draw that out. And again, I showed you my practice. This is essentially how we implemented it in my practice originally and got to the point that we're at right now. So let's look at a baseline practice. I call it, the everyman practice. 300 annual starts, which on average, I know these days we can do treatment in 18 months, 15 months, 12 months, but then you also have the patients that are dragging on to 36 months because they're not wearing their elastics and all these other things. So on average, your typical practice, 300 starts, is about 600 active patients in treatment. Now, most practices these days are actually at four, believe it or not, 4 to 6 week intervals. Most, not all. I know the doctors on this call are a little bit more innovative, so most of you guys are somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks. So let's look at the number 7, right? 6 to 8 weeks, let's call it 7 weeks on average. If you look at 7 weeks on average, 600 active patients, you need to get the 600 patients through every 7 weeks, which equals 85 clinical adjustment visits a week. Now, this size practice is generally operating today at 3 days a week clinical. And so 85 patients, 3 days, 85 patients for the week, 3 days over the week. So essentially 29, it's 29, 28 point something, 29 adjustments per day. Now, you know that practice is probably running at about 60, 70 appointments per day because you've got bondings, debondings, emergencies, retainer checks, all of those other things, okay? So I'm just kind of drawing out what this everyman practice looks like. Now, let's look at July and August, right? We're saying that this is 25 patient starts over the course of the summertime, and we know it's probably more. So that's 50 new starts. Let's say we take July and we take August, and every single new start, they're sitting down, they're getting their bonding appointment, we actually onboard them onto Grin. Now, the reason I have this over here is because one of the cool things about, one of the many things, and there's so much that Grin does, is when this patient is getting onboarded onto Grin, they immediately get access to the app. They're right there. You're in their back pocket. But it's not just you, and it's not just your practice, and it's not just the Grin Care specialist, but also a whole slew of videos. So when we talk about taking 5-10 minutes chairside during a bonding or at the end of a bonding to go over oral hygiene instructions and the no eats list that we know we all do, that all goes digital. Because half the time, this patient has just gotten their mouth bonded, they're not listening to anything you say, they're playing with their brackets and wires, right? And you're spending, or your assistant is spending the time doing this education. They fold up the piece of paper, they put it in their little baggie with their wax and their goodies. The patient goes home, loses the paper, now has no idea how to keep their teeth clean, right? This way, it's all in the app. There's videos, there's also a Grin Care specialist that's going to help them with all of this. So take away that OHI time and actually give it to Grin onboarding time for that patient, which is only 5 minutes. It's simple. So now during this summertime, you're onboarding these 50 patients. You're not taking any extra chair time in order to do it. And these patients are getting their 014 wires placed, and you're not bringing them back in 6 to 8 weeks. You're bringing them back in 12 weeks. Now, oh my God, alarm bell's going off. I can't. What if something happened? Remember, a Grin Care specialist is going to be looking at that patient, and you can look too, your assistants can look too, every 28 days. So that's how we do it in the practice. You can set how often you want your patients to take a scan. In our practice, for brackets and wires, it's 28 days. For aligners, it's every week. Every time you're ready to move into your next aligner, you're taking a scan the night before, and then you're moving into your next aligner the next day if the Grin Care specialist says you're ready to move. And we'll get to that also. So now think about July and August. These 50 patients starting are not coming in where they would have in September, but rather the July patients are coming in October. The August patients are coming in November. So think about what that does to your September now. You just took the 50 bonds from the summertime that would have come in September, you've pushed them. But not only that, when you're starting 50 patients over the summertime, you're also finishing 50 patients over the summertime. So you have 50 D bonds that we're now not taken up again with new bonds that are being seen in September, because those new bonds are getting seen in October and November. So essentially in September, you will have 100 fewer clinical appointments in your calendar. So if you think about the average practice that we're talking about in a 3-day work week, you're looking at 12 clinical days over the course of that month. Essentially, when you reduce by 100 appointments, you're looking at 10 freed up slots per day. You're looking at over 3 hours per day of extra time. Now, I'm not telling you to cut the days yet or do anything else yet. All I'm telling you to do is to take that extra time, both in September and October, and for the regular adjustments that you were getting in that were the patients from before the summer, or the regular adjustments from the summer that are coming in September, you're going to start onboarding onto Grin. So when you start thinking about, wait a minute, is this going to be disruptive in my practice? The answer is no, because during the summertime, you're onboarding the patients that would have had OHI time, and you're using the OHI time. In September, and then October, and then essentially November too, you have so much extra time in your calendar now, and I'm showing you the numbers here, that every single 20-minute adjust appointment, if you take in an extra 5 minutes and you show them how to use Grin, you still have plenty of time during the day, because you've opened up so much time during the day. So by the time November rolls around, basically your whole practice is on Grin. Your whole practice is being pushed to these new intervals. If you actually do the math, what that's yielding is that you're taking a day of about 30 adjustments if you don't change the number of days that you're in practice, and you're reducing that 30 adjustments per day down to 4 adjustments per day. And the math is here, and we can go over it with you at any time outside of this, but just to understand that. So now you've got to start thinking about, okay, what am I really going to do with that? Now, obviously there's cost savings, and you can see how the cost savings grow September, October, November. It's a significant number, and you can also see the amount of time saved, which again is also growing, right? First in September, 40 hours, but October that's doubling, and then it's, it's just kind of unbelievable what this can do to your practice. So now every doctor on this call has different pain points and has different needs. So what does that mean? What are you going to do with that extra time? Whatever you want, right? So do you want to cut clinical days? Do you want to go from 12 clinical days down to 8 clinical days in this location? Do you want to maintain at 12 days, reduce the amount of chair time or the visits per day? Do you want to shorten your day? Do you want to get rid of a column? Are you having a problem because you didn't have enough staff anyway? So by getting rid of a column, your whole day is going to run so much easier. Do you want to keep everything as is, but throw some marketing campaigns to get more patients in the chair? And by the way, Grin can also help you get new patients in the chair, virtual consults, and lots of other cool things that we will talk about. So there's all of a sudden this increased capacity to do so much more. I've got doctors that were thinking about hiring associates, implemented Grin, and now don't need to hire associates. Same thing goes with staff. Or do we just want to take it a little bit easier because life has been tough the last couple of years and we're getting burnt out? All of these opportunities now, and again, this is going to be on a doctor by doctor, practice by practice basis, how you want to deal with it and how you want to look at that time. Now, this is just going to be a shout out for the Grin account execs, who essentially will become your business partner to some extent, right? Or a consultant for your business. We've got calculators where we can plug in exactly what your practice looks like and literally run the numbers. What is Grin going to do to your practice? what's your share of aligners versus braces? What's your appointment interval? What does it cost you per chair time hour? All of these things can be done literally on a practice by practice basis. Just reach out to Kurt and his team and they'll do so. For this practice that we were talking about, and I'm not even going to plug in aligners because obviously that makes the numbers even better, but just this typical 300 start, 600 patient practice, when you onboard Grin, your ROI after the first year alone is over 200K already. The amount of visits that you've saved is over 1,800 visits. This is not just a pie in the sky. I just drew it out for you, and I'm showing you my practice that we've done exactly the same thing. Your mindset doesn't even have to change because the reality is patients love this. They feel like they're getting even closer with you in your practice and getting better taken care of. I cannot tell you how many times I've had patients who their older sibling was not on Grin, the younger sibling is on Grin. And mom turned to me and said, "Oh my God, this Grin is so good. You didn't have it for Mary when she was older. Do you know that Mary left? And although you guys were fantastic, when she left that chair with her first set of aligners, she was very unsure. She was nervous about how she's going to do it, how it's going to be. Is she making the right choice to switch? Because I used to be at 12-week intervals for aligners. So the patient would be switching on their own for those first, that first week after, that second week after. And she was telling me Mary had so much agita, so much anxiety. Am I right to switch? Am I ready to switch? The doctor said I should switch. She's like, you do not realize how much of a better experience Mary's sibling is having because she has Grin, and the Grin care specialist, in my case, Renee, shout out to Renee, she's amazing. Renee is like, hey, you've got this. You look amazing. Look at how great your teeth are tracking. Move on to your next. And that makes the patients feel so much better. So anyway, this is the reality in this practice, right? 300, 600. We can build it out for your practice and show you exactly what that looks like. Now, we haven't even started talking about what Grin can do for emergency appointments, retainer checks, hygiene, all of those other pieces to the puzzle. And this is not just giving, this is not giving your practice the homework to do this. This is where our Grin care specialists will do this in partnership with your practice for your practice. And so now we're kind of just getting into the nitty gritty a little bit of what Grin is and what it can do for your practice. The thing I like talking about is this is every patient, every stage in their treatment, in their journey, and any kind of treatment. From the beginning of virtual consults to in the TC chair, records taking and communicating with mom and dad, pre-sale, post-sale, converting them, observation, NP engagement, phase ones, active treatments, and retention. I mean, Grin essentially is a solution for all of it across the board. And so we talk about like this initial onboarding. Let's kind of go through a patient journey. I like saying Grin will start holding your patient's hand from the moment your patient touches your practice all the way through pretty much the rest of their life. And when I say the words, when a patient touches your practice, I mean in person in the TC chair or virtually through virtual consults. And now we have a lot of doctors that are leveraging Grin Rapid Referral for even more GP referrals. So just to give you one slide to show you what that looks like, imagine you go around to your local GPs that are friendlies, but maybe hand out 3 cards, including your card, and you actually stock them with scopes. And now either they're handing out scopes to patients and the patients go home and take a scan and you're immediately connected to that patient before they ever made an appointment, or even better yet, for a real friendly, they actually take the Grin scan for you in chair. And we can talk about different business models that you can now actually leverage the GP and the hygienist to take that Grin scan and connect your practice with their patient immediately and potentially get compensated for that service. But now you can imagine this referral becomes a rock solid iron referral where that patient leaves the GP chair, goes home, and later on that night, their phone pings, and now you've got a video in their Grin inbox with you showing them exactly what's needed, giving them a full consultation, and essentially face-to-face but asynchronously meeting them for the first time. Very, very, very powerful. And definitely reach out. We can talk more about that. But let's talk about like the in the chair, right? This is the way we run our TC visits. So I'm going to speed these videos up a little bit, but essentially patient comes in and what my TC is doing is we're not pulling out that old DSLR. We actually have an iPhone that the TC uses, and we're taking a Grin scan because the Grin scan will automatically generate records. And now I sit down in the chair here, and let me just run this. And so this Mac right here has a camera in it, and I'm running Grin. I am showing the patient what's going on in their mouth while being recorded. And this is essentially a virtual consult through Grin. It's called a scan review. So mom and patient are looking at this big screen behind me. I am talking to this screen and to them here. And as it's recording, this recording is now going in their Grin app. So guess what? Dad, who is not in this appointment, is able to access that at any time. And now it's not just a, oh, how did it go with the orthodontist today? And mom's like, oh, it's going to cost us $6,000, $7,000. Now the dad is seeing your full consult, understanding why treatment is needed. Even more powerful is after I get up from this chair, my TC sits down in this chair, goes over finances, and will actually turn on scan review again. So now dad is getting two videos. The video of me describing clinical, the video of my TC going over financials, so that when this patient leaves the practice, and you can see it here, this patient immediately is getting a ping on the Grin app and clicks that Grin app and is looking at those videos. Dad gets the videos, mom gets the videos, kid gets the videos, and now these pending patients, it's just that much easier to close. They have the right information. It's not a bad game of telephone. And on top of that, you can now, or not you, but your TC, communicate with them over the app, the same way they like dealing with everything in their life, right? Over the phone and over the app. And so patient goes home and patient now converts, and we have a lot of patients that are actually converting on the platform now in conversation between the TC and mom and dad. What we also have, and I'm going to run through this a little bit, but we've got some integrations, for example, with Solventum, so that as we're planning a case, you click a button, there's an automatic bridge that all of these records immediately go into the Clarity portal, which is very, very cool. And obviously we're working with others, and let us know who you use so that we can work with them as well. Because my goal is TC took that Grin scan, we get records from that Grin scan, click of a button, it all goes wherever you need it. So now you can order your case immediately with a bridge through the Grin app. And so here, this is the Clarity portal. And not only does all the information cross over, but as you're filling this out and ordering, whether it's brackets or aligners, you can also not just view the static images, but view the actual dynamic video. So you can rest assured on how this patient is biting down. Are they going to need elastics, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of different tools in the planning stage. And so you can see we're kind of going through the patient journey. We started at patient touching the office virtually or in person. We've got the consult day and the TC chair. Now we've got bonding day. And this is just some screenshots of the video that I was talking about for oral hygiene instructions. So that chair side, we can actually show the patient how to use Grin. We have got a whole slew of things on the hygiene side. And I know a lot of doctors ignore hygiene. A lot of doctors are obsessive over hygiene. We've got you covered. We have reports for the patient. We have photos for the patient. We have videos for the patient. We have the ability to click a button and send the Grin scan to the patient's GP and say, hey, can you get them in for a 3-month cleaning because, oh my goodness, it's a mess in there. And now you're covered. And obviously all of this data is there for you to pull down so that you know all along in treatment, you've been talking to the family about hygiene, and we're very well covered. And also we've proven out that when the Grin Care specialist is badgering the patient over hygiene, over treatment, we have a 53% reduction in plaque. And we've done studies to prove that out. On bonding day, of course, like I said, we've got some integrations where attachments can be in Grin and all of the other information you need for that bonding day. Now, we talked a little bit about Grin Care specialists and how they're basically running your patients virtually for you. You always, again, have access to all of this. But just to show you some of this, this is actually taken from my practice. So first, the AI or Copilot is quickly saying, hey, the scan was reviewed and something's going on. The AI will pick up broken chain, where it is, and hygiene. And here you can see Renee talking to my patient, talking about the chain. I will let Brianna know. So in here, she assigns the patient to Brianna and puts a little note in, patient has a broken chain. Do you guys want to bring that patient in earlier? This is when their appointment is. So all of this is being done in the background in Grin, and the Grin Care specialist essentially is driving all of this. Here's another one, right? This is a hygiene situation, right? Showing the patient, hey, everything's looking great, teeth are moving great, but you got a little bit of plaque here, and all of that. And you can see it's not just a bot. This is a human that's able to talk to your patients, wish them happy Memorial Days, etc. It's just a really, really good experience overall. And the same thing goes for a situation, right, with aligners. Hey, some doctors believe in chewies, some doctors don't believe in chewies, but this patient is sending a scan before the patient is moving on to their next tray. So if there's something not tracking, we are catching it in real time at day 7. We're not waiting till 12 weeks for the patient to come and now something's completely not tracking. So we, of course, are doing fewer refinements and a much, much better tracking because we have this kind of granularity across the board. Here's a mom that tends to communicate for the patient, talking about, oh my God, we're seeing a change. So quickly we sent them over the morph, right? Or Renee did, I didn't, right? To say, oh my God, look at all these changes. Look how good it looks. So it's just an unbelievable experience from beginning to end for the patient, for the patient's families, etc. Now, we talked a little bit about the Grin Care Specialist, and you saw that. What about the AI that's running in the background? Well, we started not just running it in the background, but also showing it to you guys now with what we call Grin Copilot. And Copilot is very, very cool and very, very powerful. And there's a lot of different things that Copilot can do. But to begin with, you can see here, we've got a bunch of different Copilot settings, whether it's aligners, elastics, treatment goals, IPR, oral hygiene. And what I mean by that is you will actually set up in Copilot what we call an elastic assistant, as an example, right? You put this patient on class 2 elastics. Grin is always up, by the way, in our practice chairside. We've got tops and Grin. And the reason is exactly this. Number one, I want to be able to, on the fly, turn on Copilot or turn off Copilot for different things, right? If I'm putting a patient in elastics, I'm turning on Copilot for elastics so that my Grin Care Specialist and the AI knows this patient is in elastics. The elastics are class 2s. We are keeping an eye on when this class 2 turns into class 1, right? Because some of these appointments we're even doing on demand. So a little bit of that later. That's kind of like expert level, but you can all get there because we now have an AI and a human running this for your practice. And so everything's up chairside so you can pick and choose and set up what needs to be done. We also have Grin chairside so that before an assistant goes to get a patient from the waiting room, we look at their prior scan and we check, was there anything broken? Is there anything we need to do? So the setup for that patient is even more ideal because you're not going based off of an appointment 6 weeks ago. You're going off of a Grin scan that could have very well been literally like a week ago. Now, before we get to Treatment Tracker, one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to jump off and show you guys my Copilot, okay? So this is my actual Grin portal for my patients, okay? And you know what? We've got a patient up. Let me just show you. So this is a patient that's in aligners. Of course, this patient took a Grin scan. You can watch the video. You can stop the video. You can also kind of look at the still shots of each one. So you can jump back and forth. You can show or hide the layers of hygiene as well. So if there's any hygiene problems, it'll kind of pick it up, etc. Here is where all of the communication happens between the patient and Renee. But this is Copilot. Let me show you Copilot for a second. So you can see that turned on for this patient is aligners and hygiene. Oop, there we go, on hygiene. When you hover over it, it'll show you what your settings were and what your guidelines are. So we know that the AI and Renee are tracking this patient's aligner wear and their hygiene. You can also see some insights in did the patient take their scans, their oral hygiene is fair, are they scanning on time, and what the sentiment is. Now, this is really, really cool. The AI, number one, goes in and is reading all of the communication. So the AI is not communicating with the patient. Renee is communicating with the patient, but the AI is translating things that are happening clinically and looking at the communication between Renee and the patient and actually creating a summary. Ava has been consistently sending scans and receiving positive feedback on the fit of her aligners from Dr. Renee, who has been advising her to advance to the next step, blah, blah, blah. This sentiment is also based off of how the AI is reading all of these interactions, which is really, really cool. Now, let me show you my Copilot dashboard for a second. So that was one specific look at one patient. This is a dashboard over all of my patients. And so you can see a total number of virtual checks. You can see how many virtual checks Renee and team did versus how many my team had to do, how much no attention is required, how many time savings, all of these cool things. I'm going to take this down to 30 days because that was all of it. So you can just see over the last 30 days. This overall patient sentiment to me still is the coolest. And it's basically the AI telling you, I went in, I looked at how many patients are tracking, how many are not. I looked at the communication between patient and Renee, and this is how these patients are feeling. Here is a needs attention. You can see these are both retainer patients that I or my team have to go in and just double check and make sure they're wearing their retainers. And then when you click to the overall patient sentiment, you can literally look at, when you hover, here we go. This is a patient. The messages from both doctors and patients are consistently positive, with frequent praise for the patient's progress and cleanliness, and the patient's responses are appreciative and cooperative. Very, very cool. And this is now an insight that you have to everything going on in your practice to the likes of which you've never had before. So I wanted to kind of jump in there and show that to you guys quickly so you understand how powerful Copilot can be, not just from a perspective of what you can do as far as monitoring your patient and making sure your patients are on track, but even insights that you've never really had before. Now, of course, some of that AI is also built off of what we call Treatment Tracker. And Treatment Tracker is the best of really the clinical world and the monitoring world, where I have always set out not to tell you, for example, like a lot of other companies out there, that there's a gap in your aligner. Okay, yeah, I can see a gap in the aligner. But we all know, the clinicians on the call, if there's a gap at the lateral, many times it's not because the lateral isn't tracking, it's because the canine isn't tracking, and therefore the tray is flexing and et cetera. So I don't want to know if there is a gap and where there's a gap. I want to know, this was my plan, this is where the teeth actually are. Are they correlating? And if not, why are they off? How far are they off? And that's what Treatment Tracker is. We are essentially showing you tooth by tooth where the teeth are when that patient takes a scan versus where they're supposed to be. Now, the cool thing with Treatment Tracker is because it's based on digital initial STLs, we can do it for aligners. We can also do it for digital bonding. So what you're seeing here is a digital bonding case. Now, of course, digital bonding doesn't have stages, so I can't tell you stage by stage, but I can tell you this is where the tooth was, this is where the tooth needs to end. Where along that line is it? Is movement accelerating or not? So here you can see the graph that you can choose on a tooth by tooth basis. How far from treatment goal is it? We show velocity of tooth movement also so that you will know if no teeth are moving, guess what? It's time to move on to the next wire. So there are practices that are using this to go completely on demand and essentially setting up Treatment Copilot saying as soon as that wire is no longer moving teeth, meaning the velocity is slowed down, let our scheduling coordinator know so that that scheduling coordinator can reach out to the patient and make the next appointment. So this is where you start seeing everything kind of come around. Now, with this technology, this absolutely goes to the next level of every single patient that leaves your practice and gets a retainer. Number one, retention is completely virtual. There's no need to ever see a patient in your practice. And in fact, you want it virtual because now you have actual data that you can always pull down to show the retainer fit. This is 3 months after treatment, the teeth were perfectly straight. So when the patient comes back 3 years from now and stopped wearing their retainer and stopped taking Grin scans and says, the retainer never fit, or you never gave me a retainer, this is all here. For those that are thinking even more entrepreneurial, you can also create retention programs, and we have been talking to some of the retainer systems out there to integrate, or we can do this directly with your practice so that you can tell mom, hey, you know what? Come on our retainer program. It's X per year, X per month. We will continuously monitor your child, make them take a scan every 3 or 6 months. And from here, you're now assured that you can tell as soon as a tooth starts moving because of Treatment Tracker, we can see how much it's moved and why, nip it in the bud, make sure that patient pops their retainers in and starts wearing it full time, etc. So you guys can imagine where this can all go, but not just where it can go, where it already is. I've been talking for a while. What I attempted to kind of show you, just kind of to sum it up, was number one, how my practice integrated Grin and what it did for us. Number two, showing you how valuable that can be for your practice and really change the way you're practicing, make your life and your team's life easier. Number three, take it down to a patient by patient level and show you how much more profitable you can be on a per patient. In fact, we have some practices that are in lower income areas that are utilizing Grin and reducing their fees and being more profitable. So again, you can do whatever you want with this, just showing you how important that could be. And then I kind of gave you an insight of taking a patient from the moment they touch your practice all the way through and what Grin does for you. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Kurt for a couple of minutes. He's just going to talk to you for a little bit about how to get started, how to start implementing, and then I'm going to jump back in so that we can go over some Q&A. We still have about 10 minutes. Would love to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you, Adam. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Kurt with the commercial team. Just wanted to talk real quickly about how to get started and then give this back to Adam because I know you guys have some specific questions about his experience and then individual challenges you'd like to see if Grin could solve and ask one of your peers. So if you want to get started, we have a great onboarding program. There's two different ways to kind of think about how to get started with Grin. You'll meet your Grin care specialist, a member who will work with your team. We've got an onboarding specialist as well that'll help you get set up virtually. And this is time sensitive because, like Adam mentioned, we're all close to the orthodontic industry, obviously, and know how busy this season is. And what you do over the next 2 months dictates what your practice looks like the next 2 years. So we can get you up and running next week if you guys are open to a virtual onboarding. Two different ways to get started. One way you can look at it, you work with your account executive. I'd encourage you to take some at the QR codes in the bottom right hand part of the screen to get raise your hand to say you want to get started, or talk to your account executive to show you tips and tricks for this summer and how to optimize things within the practice. But the quick and easy way to get started is think about onboarding, testing the system with a month's worth of your patients, and then sort of look at like a 2-3 month window. Take your 30 patients that usually typical orthodontic practice starts. We charge you $4,500. It includes everything, your scopes, the onboarding training, all the nice stuff that Adam just showed you, including your Grin care specialist, and test out the system. Then after a couple months, the account executive will work with you on your KPIs, how you want to measure it to make sure this is right for you guys when you test your system, and then decide if you want to get deeper into it and put all your patients on Grin. The second way, understanding the orthodontic space and the unpredictability of starts, cash flow, etc., we created this flat fee pricing program. So you'll have the same fee every month based on the size of your practice. But even small practices get in and get a predictable $14.99 a month. That locks you in pricing for a year as well. And that'll include everything, your Grin care specialist, the scopes, everything you need to get started. So we keep it really, really simple. These do expire at the end of the month. So Monday, so let us know ASAP if you'd like to get going. If the time's not right, talk to one of our Grin care, our account executives and figure out a time which would be advantageous for you guys in your practice to get going. So any questions about the pricing or how to get started, hit the QR code or send us an email on the website after this is over and we'll get in touch with you. So want to give time back to Adam and the rest of you to ask specific questions. So want to go to the next slide, Jillian? And let's start some Q&A. Feel free put your questions. Everybody can come off of mute now. I encourage you. We have a small group here, guys, so this should be awesome. Love to hear your actual voice. But if you're a little shy and just want to type in the chat area, you can type a question there, or you can type a private question in and we can ask Adam or someone else for you. So with that said, if anybody wants to come off mute and get this started. Otherwise, I have two questions that came in.
Yeah, go for it.
Adam, the one doctor who were named nameless wants to know what are the benefits previously put patients in for aligner use only. What's the great benefits to braces?
Great question. So it's interesting because When one of our competitors first came to the market, they came to the market as a aligner monitoring tool, period, right? Part of the reason that I brought Grin to the market is because that is so short-sighted. This is a patient management system. So you've seen all of these different things that Grin can do for your practice. This is when, the way I think of it, I've got TOPS, which is my practice management software, and I've got Grin, which is my patient management software. And having every patient in Grin allows me to essentially touch every patient virtually whenever I want to, whenever I need. It gives me a pulse on my practice. It gives my patients this unbelievable connection to my practice, basically in their back pocket. When you have braces patients, it's almost more important. Not quite, but there are some doctors that just throw aligners at patients and say, I don't even want to see you until the end and then I'll refine you. Now, of course, that's not the right way to do it, but with braces and wires, there's emergencies, there's wire pokes, there's questions, there's hygiene, right? All of those pieces to it are so important. And when you have somebody every 28 days taking a peek at those patients, you become so much of a better practice, both for the patient and for yourself. Elastic wear. How many more times do you want to come to a chair and hear that this stubborn teenage boy hasn't been wearing their elastics and they came in to waste your time and that's about it, right? On Grin, that goes away. Number one, because you have Big Brother watching over that scan, and it's not you, it's Renee or Lou or one of our team members. But number two, you also are documenting it. So at the end of treatment, when it went 36 instead of 24, mom says, why did you take so long? He was always good with his rubber bands. No, he wasn't. Here it is, right? All of those pieces to it, being able to immediately send any of those scans to the GP to show them how treatment's going, which is a huge practice builder. I mean, I could get into it deeply, but you getting away from that mindset that this is just about monitoring aligners is so key to unlocking what I just showed you. When I just showed you what it's done for my practice, I mean, my practice is almost double in revenue from what it was in before we implemented Grin. And again, you took a 100-patient day down to a 60-patient day, and we're doing it on 2 days a week. So this is what Grin can do for you when it's implemented as a patient management system across the practice, and not when you're thinking about it just as, oh, this is going to help my aligner cases, but that's it.
I have another question that came through.
Great.
Uh, It says, can you explain how the 3D treatment tracker improves visibility compared to traditional tracking methods?
So that's kind of what I was talking about with the gap in the tray, right? I don't care if there's a gap in my tray. I want to know, why is there a gap in my tray? Why is a tooth not tracking? And how is that tooth not tracking? Like, it's crazy, but Treatment Tracker has actually changed the way I stage aligner treatment because I'm learning on a week by week basis, depending on how I stage treatment, how the teeth are responding. So I know, is it the lateral or is it the canine? Is the canine just not yet fully rotated? Is it because maybe I don't have the right attachment on my canine and that's why a lateral is dragging, because the canine is rotated, the tray is flexed, nothing's touching that lateral. And so as an orthodontist, not only do I want to know tooth by tooth, which is what Treatment Tracker does and others don't, but also it's actually changing and teaching me how to be a better orthodontist because I'm getting knowledge that I never had before.
Awesome. Thank you. I have another one here. It says, how do the parents feel about the virtual monitoring versus coming into the practice for visits?
It's crazy, but they love it. Now, it's funny because I cannot even tell you how many patients come in and say, oh, we're here, not because somebody specifically recommended, but you guys do that thing with the phone and we don't have to come in as much, right? Yes, right? Like they're sitting at soccer practice and the moms are talking. And Grin is actually what they're talking about because they don't have to take their kid out of school and out of soccer practice to come see you as frequently. The whole process is simpler. Or an emergency happens on the soccer field, they go home, they take a Grin scan, and I'm getting them an answer right out of the gate, right? That connection is unbelievable. I'll just tell a tiny little story. I have a doctor, a good friend of mine in Virginia. He said to me, Adam, this is going to work in New York City, but in Virginia, my patients want to see me. I'm like, Trust me, give it a try. Let me know how it goes. He texts me about 2, 3 months later and he's like, oh my God, I am closer with my Grin patients than my patients that aren't on Grin because he hadn't yet fully transitioned over. He was like, I had a kid in and we were talking about their championship softball game. They sent in their next Grin scan. I saw it come through on my phone. I jumped in there and said, oh my God, how did your game go? And now they're sending me a photo with the championship trophy over Grin. He's like, this is the kind of conversation that never would have taken place without Grin. So thank you, because I am actually getting closer with these patients than I would otherwise.
Awesome.
Adam, there's a question from Dr. Thomas. Does Grin replace our practice management software or integrate with it?
So we'll integrate with it. It's funny because we have some integrations like with Dolphin, et cetera, and we're working on others. It won't replace it yet because I'm still not doing actual scheduling and finances or anything like that. Maybe that's down the road. For now, it's more about, like I said, the patient management part of it. So the clinical part, the photos, the communication, all of those other pieces to it. Back in the early days, I had a couple of doctors that were early adopters that were like, oh my God, we want this all completely integrated. Now they're telling me, oh, we use Grin up laterally to our practice management software, regardless of integration. We don't even want it integrated. Because, like, for example, there are doctors that love looking at the Grin scans as a video. And they're like, my practice management software doesn't even have a place to put video. It's only, it's an older software and it's only still shots, right? So we can integrate. There's a ton of functionality that will work in integration, but you don't have to. This is, like I said, a patient management software. So it adds another layer to your practice that gives you a ton of great communication, information, imaging, all those other pieces to it. But it's separate from, your calendar and your billing and all of that.
Adam, one more here. Doctor wants to know how they can share. I guess I could summarize this because we hear it all the time in sales and marketing is I'm an orthodontist. I want new patients. How does Grin get me those or assist with that? And then how do I increase engagement with referrals from both the users and GPs, that whole referral network? How do I strengthen that?
Well, great question. So first of all, Grin also does remote consultation. So whether it's through the GP or even on your website, like if you go to my website, you can choose to schedule an in-person consult or a virtual consult. If you choose virtual consult as a patient, you're putting in your name, address, whatever. Grin actually drop ships you a scope. You get the scope in the mail, you take a scan, and I get pinged that there's a scan, and later on at night, I jump on that scan and I will send you a video consult back asynchronously. It's amazing. Number two, in the GP chair, I kind of talked about it a little bit before. Depends on your relationship with the GP. There are those that are going to be your raving fans, and now they're handing the patient a scope, and this patient is going home and taking a scan. There are those that they like you, but they also like the guy down the block. So they used to hand out 3 business cards. Now they're handing out 2 business cards and your scope. And now the patient's like, what is this? This patient is definitely going home, opening up the scope, downloading the app, and taking a scan. Absolutely 100% of the time versus taking a business card home and remembering to call the next day, right? And now you're connected with that patient and you're doing a virtual consult, then you're bringing them in. It's amazing. There's another layer. Many of you guys probably know about all these services like Evenly and others where there's an orthodontist that's running treatment in a GP chair. What I say is talk to the GPs around you and you become that person where the GP will take a scan in their chair. It gets shot over virtually to you. You do that consult, you capture that patient, and then you figure out between you and the GP, not a fee splitting, but rather giving them the proper kind of pay for their service of taking that scan, right? So there's lots of different things. You can talk to me offline about it that can absolutely dramatically change your referrals from those around you, whether it's direct from the patient, the consumer, or it's direct from GP or other specialty chairs. Outside of that, you've also got a way, every time there's a hygiene situation, every time there's good results happening, you can click a button and send that patient's Grin scan to their doctor, to their GP. So imagine, remember back in the day, you used to write these big reports that sat on the GP's desk and they threw in the garbage? Now, during treatment, you have a case that's dramatically changed. You click two buttons and the GP gets a ping and basically is looking at the before and after that you just sent them, like, oh my God, Dr. Scholhoff is really killing it with this case, right? Now you're in front of them even more. And guess what? They're going into that next patient in their op and they're referring them to your practice. So lots and lots of different ways. And that's kind of how we built Grin. This is not just about efficiencies and bottom line. This is also about top line and getting more patients into your chair.
There was a question I answered on the chat in case all of you guys have a question about the pricing. The pricing I provided up there was basically how to get started with Grin, but we can set it up, your pricing up custom to the way you want to work. So if you have multiple locations or if you're in a DSO but private or practice privately, we can set that up and then you can manage it however you want by location or like a full blown one office setup. Totally can customize that to you. Just meet with your uh, Grin account executive and they'll guide you in the right direction. But I wanted to ask my boss, Dr. Adam, one question to sum this thing up. What are you most proud of? I'm putting you on the spot. What are you most proud of with Grin? What are you most excited to talk about next? Give everybody just a little wink and a bump with your elbow on what's around the corner and the way you kind of think about where this is going. There's a lot of questions to unpack there, but I guess what are you
Yeah.
most excited about in the future?
Look, there's so many different things that we're building out that will probably, really surprise everybody. Number one, I'm going to say that I've always been a firm believer in the consumer, and what I mean by that is how do I give patients who are not yet patients, right? This is pre-sale, and are thinking like a consumer, how do I give them what they are looking for? And of course, you guys heard about my journey initially with Smile Direct Club. Smile Direct Club's back in New York. They're calling themselves like, I forget, Smile Set or something like that. It's insane. But really being able to give every single orthodontist the tools to be able to capture patients, consumers, where they are. And so imagine for a second that there is a world that a patient at some point can obtain Grin otherwise, take a scan of their teeth and then get that over to you, a Grin provider, right? So that we're actively getting consumers to your chairs. That's number one. Number two, I'm a big proponent of access to care. Many of you guys like me have gone on all these missions, right? And we would drop into a foreign place for 5 days. The first 3 days were triage, 2 days of treatment. What if I can get Grin scopes over there and actually have all the triaging happening prior? So when we're boots on the ground, we're doing good work. And when we leave, we're not just leaving this population, but we're leaving them connected to the hygiene school or to the dental school so that they're taking scans and they have continuous ongoing care. And in the background, Grin is working on a lot of different things on the access to care side that doctors don't know about. We're very, very actively involved with Head Start programs and different programs like Foresight Kids, where we are getting into schools and other programs for the underserved, getting Grin scans on hundreds of these kids and getting them connected with doctors. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I think that we're all in it for. But from a technology perspective, we know that the entirety of the market is changing. The way patients want to be seen and are being seen, completely changing. I want us orthodontists to be ahead of that curve. And that's why I built Grin. So that, if we can get out of our little box that we always stay in and think about ways where we can actually give patients exactly what they're looking for, but do it in a way where we are still in control. We are still responsible for their care. We are still completely connected to these patients. That's what we've set out to do and are continuing to do. So these are the kind of stuff that really, really get me excited. I can go on and on about it, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Oh, I just got a direct question. I know we're at time, but which cases are best for combo treatment?
I love it. This is a typical orthodontist getting all clinical. So we can honestly get my phone number 551-486-5121. That's my cell. Text me and we'll talk because I do combo and I do hybrid and I'm passionate about it because they're great cases. Combo is braces first, aligners second, or vice versa. Hybrid is aligners on the upper, braces on the bottom. Each one has a ton of different cases that are really beneficial for them, but I will tell you, it is such a practice builder because other docs around you are not talking about this. The GPs certainly cannot touch this because GPs are only doing aligners. So if you can layer on braces, whether it's on the lower arch or in combination consecutively, you now have the patient's attention and you're offering them something that others aren't and something that is better. So get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to talk about it. I'm kind of passionate about stuff like that, but really, really good question. And yeah, we can take that offline for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. I just shared Adam's cell number in the chat, so everybody can start spamming him this afternoon.
Looking forward.
And I'll share his email here as well.
Great.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. If there's no final questions, thank you all so much for joining us and spending your Friday afternoon with us. We'll be sending a follow-up email with the recording. And yeah, you can connect with your account manager in your area. And any other questions, feel free to text or email Adam, Adam directly.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys, so much. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you all so much. Have a great weekend.